Starfield, the game 25 years in the making from one of the best Western RPG studios of all time, is about to come out, and I've been given an early review copy of the game. So let me tell you that after over 20 hours of shooting, smacking, stabbing, talking, lockpicking, and shit-blasting my way through the settled systems, and having an amazing time doing it, I discovered you can't actually pet the robot. So I was about to give it a 0 out of 10 because that means it's literally unplayable. Then I discovered that they have cube-based pizza. So now I have to make a more detailed video. My name is Paul Shelley, and welcome to TheAstroPub, your favorite space bar at the edge of the galaxy. As I said in the intro, Bethesda gave me an early review copy of the game, so I'm in a unique position I have never been in before, as I've never done a review of a game before. So as to keep the YouTube robots happy, I'm breaking my initial review into 2 videos. This one is a spoiler-free review on the gameplay and general feel of the game. My initial review of the lore and background of the game will be on my other channel, The Astro Historian. If you want to know more about that, check that video out in the top right. So without any further ado, let's talk about the gameplay of Starfield. The short review is, Starfield is the tightest gameplay experience I have seen from a main released Bethesda title in almost a decade. It feels like a return to Morrowind and Oblivion, with the lessons learned from Skyrim, Fallout 3, 4, and 76. The joke that this is Skyrim in space is not wrong. It even sounds a lot like the early reviews of Fallout 3, which was touted as Oblivion with guns. Like that comparison, it also isn't a bad thing. At its core, Starfield is a Bethesda game through and through. They are not reinventing the wheel or doing something entirely new. It's a refinement of the formula that they've been working on since Elder Scrolls 3 back in 2002. So, let's start off by looking at the most improved and best part of the game in my experience, the combat. They've evolved their classic combat system. All the weapons have unique feels to them, which leans into older style of RPG design that Bethesda was going for with Starfield. It allows players who develop their own preferred way to fight to not feel forced into taking a specific weapon to deal with any encounters. While I was playing on normal difficulty, the combat still felt challenging enough that more than once I had to think on my feet after running low on ammo, medical supplies, or both in the middle of a fight. Even so, I rarely died from these encounters, so while I felt challenged, I didn't feel frustrated. Part of what makes combat feel so good in Starfield is the AI, which has gotten a lot better from the last time I played a Bethesda title, which was Fallout 4. The weapon loadouts of the various enemies you face are never standardized to the point of being easy to tell who's carrying what, but still consistent enough that you know what kind of ammo you're going to find based on the opponents you're facing. The AI also has a nasty habit of being able to surprise you at the worst possible times. The majority of encounters you will face will be with opponents with ranged weapons. However, there are enough optional and melee-focused enemies that if you get too close, you risk being charged and stunned by their attacks before you can drop them. This means every encounter always risks turning against you at the worst possible time if you're not careful. That is also before taking into account the various types of enemies you will find, from humans to robots to hostile alien creatures, each with their own behaviors, which are hard to predict. Bethesda also really took into account things like verticality, especially in zero-G environments, as well as narrow corridors and even how much cover there is available to players in AI. This isn't anything revolutionary, but it keeps combat encounters feeling fresh even after 20+ hours of gameplay. The one massive change comes in the form of customization for weapons, armor, and crafting in general. This touches on more than just combat, but I really felt this change when it came to combat compared to Fallout 4. It really felt like a much more meaningful impact and time constraint compared to just crushing all your junk and turning it into infinity scopes or crafting 100 daggers to get your smithing up. Firstly, all upgrades and crafting needs to be unlocked via research projects, which require their own unique resources to complete. There are a lot more resources in Starfield than in any previous game. As a result, the formulas for both research and craft are much more specific, with some being much harder to find in the wild than others. Luckily, you can buy most of these resources at shops in large cities or with other traders, but if you're the kind of player that wants to be entirely independent, there's a lot more work you'll have to do to get the right resources to do so. All this means that unless you are actively searching for some specific resource, you might end up just out of reach of upgrading your weapons and armor or crafting to your gameplay style. Effectively, gathering resources is almost its own gameplay loop in Starfield, even with its more simplistic approach to mining than other games in the genre. Overall, I'd say the combat of Starfield is really one of the high points of the game. Sadly, ship combat is, well, less than desirable. Ship combat feels more like Star Fox than Wing Commander. A very arcade experience with some power management thrown in to feel like you're in a bit more control. The basics of space combat is to use your lasers to take down shields, then ballistics to take down the hull, with missiles working well for both, but requiring a lock, which means you have to get really close to the enemy ship. Ship combat swings from so easy it's almost insulting to nearly impossible. I don't think I ever encountered anything between those two. For a first attempt, it's not bad, but it does lead into another, more mixed issue, which is skills. Skills in Starfield are a new take on that same old formula. It's similar to Skyrim's and Fallout 4's system, but because of how skills now have nested skill tiers you have to unlock using the shared experience-based system, you can often find yourself with too many skills you want, but not enough skill points. This means that if you hyper-focus on one skill, you can become really good at one thing, but you also risk not being even decent at other things like targeting with ships, persuading in conversations, or lockpicking, which can almost soft-lock you out of the experience. Part of me is kind of glad for this, because it forces players to be careful and choose their skills which best reflect their playstyle. But there is nothing worse than that feeling of becoming a god of death with a shotgun, only to find you can't get access to another room on a station because you didn't put a point into lockpicking. This, combined with the New Game Plus edition, feels like Bethesda is forcing players to do multiple runs with the same character to get the full experience, and thus artificially inflating playtime. That being said, the skills-based gameplay is very much improved from other Bethesda games. Lockpicking is more of a puzzle this time, where you have to think from inside out, and I never got bored nor overly frustrated with it. Persuasion is more akin to Oblivion's system, with a number of attempts, a number you need to hit in order to succeed, and options which seem to be based on probabilities of success or failure, from green, the easiest but also the lowest in point value, to red, the hardest but the highest in point value. All in all, it feels like while skills are harder to come by than previous Bethesda games, there aren't many that feel entirely useless to choose from, as long as you specialize in that style of gameplay. Lastly, I'm going to talk about what is probably what Bethesda is most known for outside their game design and style: the legendary number of bugs they ship their games with. For once, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the game isn't really buggy. There were some weird glitches with items and dead bodies jittering around, and sometimes NPCs would phase into objects and derp out in the middle of combat, but those were rarely an issue at all, let alone a major one. I won't say it's bug-free, no game ever is, but in my experience, I never once ran into an end-running glitch or bug. It's sad to say that it's a good thing in today's state of gaming and not a status quo, as it should be, but as a longtime Bethesda fan, I'll take the occasional weird creation engine glitch over frequent game-ruining errors. Again, this is based on my experience, and your mileage may vary, but from my own experience, this is far from the absolute nightmare that was Fallout 76's launch. So, based on my own experience, would I suggest you pick up Starfield at launch? If you are a fan of Bethesda games, or space RPGs, then I would say yes. If you are one of those people looking for the next great space sim, then you will be very disappointed. Starfield is a good game, a fun experience, and the latest in a long line of Bethesda RPGs. If you come in with that in mind, you'll not be disappointed. And as a longtime member of the Cult of Todd, I have to say, for once, it just works. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button to appease the YouTube robot overlords. If you want me to do more in-depth breakdown of the game, please let me know in the comments below. Finally, if you want to ask me any questions about the game live, I'll be streaming Starfield on my Twitch, twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, around the time this video drops, and likely frequently throughout the week, including a special edition of the Captain's Table, where Space Tomato and Morphologist will come on to talk about their experiences with the game. Come on by and check it out before you buy it. Again, thanks for watching, and like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.